Hello, and welcome again to The Goddess in Art. In our program today, we're going to be looking at some of the earliest known creations of art. And we're also going to be looking at that art with the view of our ancestors' myths and their spiritual values as seen through that art. My name is Star Goody, and my guest today is Dr. Marija Gimbutas. She is a professor of archaeology at UCLA in Los Angeles, and she's also the author of numerous books, including The Goddesses and Gods of Old Europe and The Language of the Goddess, Images and Symbols of Old Europe. Welcome, Marija. Marija, it seems that the goddess and creativity go hand in hand. All throughout Paleolithic and Neolithic Europe, we see goddess art. It's just found all over. And in your last book, you refer to the goddess as the incarnation of the creative principle, as source and giver of all. Why don't you tell us a little more about this goddess? Who is she?
She is certainly not Venus, not a beauty, not a wife or a bride of male gods. She is a creatrix. And she is extremely versatile. She appears in a variety of forms, because we must understand that in early times the goddess was the unity of nature. She can appear as a stone. Her power is in a stone or in water or in trees or in flowers and animals and birds, and therefore she appears as a bird or as an animal or as an anthropomorphic being. Also, it must be remembered that this is a very long period of time. She ruled at least from the Upper Paleolithic, when we have a lot of material, but she probably was there much before, maybe 1 million years ago. That is not yet clearly established, but we think it was so. And then in Europe, she continued to exist during the agricultural period up to the period when the patriarchal rule was established. And this was then about 3000 BC. So we shall talk today about the goddess between 30,000 and 3000 BC. In the Mediterranean area, maybe much longer, till about 1500 or even longer than that.
So the roots are just longer than we can know, but even from the point we know, it's a good 40,000 years of really seeing this goddess worship. And
a matristic or gynocentric religion was of enormous length of time.
And the goddess, in our ancestors in these ages, the goddess was the primary figure.
Oh, she was, although we don't say that there were no male figures. There were also male figures, but she is definitely predominant. And we shall classify today her into 4 major classes. Well, one is she is the life giver, then she is death wielder, then she is a regeneratrix, and then she is also fertility, earth fertility. So the name fertility goddess is just representing one aspect of her. And she is much more than even mother or great mother. She is probably more than mother, because in some aspects she is not mother. And then all other terms applied to her are really not accurate, and especially I don't like the fertility and the Venus. Paleolithic Venus is not right.
Because it's just sort of trying to, we're looking at her from our patriarchal culture and just trying to consign her in this limitation.
We want to find the goddesses which are, for instance, in the Indo-European religion, she is a dawn or sun maiden. She is just a bride, weaving and spinning, but not doing anything, not creating. And the prehistoric goddess is a creatrix. Although she is also not only creating but destructing, and she is death.
In other words, it's more than just like the pretty Venus, or again, just hers, the Earth Mother, but this enormous function in what you said, like the source of life, the creative principle, and embodying everything, creation and destruction. She just takes it all in.
She is actually the nature. She is cosmos. She is everything. And for us, it's probably difficult to imagine that in earlier times, there was such an intimate contact with nature, because we are divorced from it.
Right. And I think we'll see in the art, too, this profound feeling for nature and the sense of nature. And, of course, these people are needing to sustain life in the sense of depending on these forces and really this love of the goddess, knowing their life comes from her.
Yes, of course. I think that we shall see the slides and then we shall understand maybe more what this goddess is, because we also have to understand what kind of art they produced. The art is very much related to religion, to their very, very deep beliefs, communally sanctioned beliefs. And the art is abstract, it's not a naturalistic art. So that is also one of the major problems why the Paleolithic and Neolithic, which means agricultural period, goddesses are not yet understood.
Yes, because they think that they couldn't draw it better or something, whereas really, or sculpt it better, whereas really they had a very sophisticated, abstract sense of things, and we're dealing with symbols, and we're really dealing with very creative human beings.
We are dealing with symbols, with the deepest beliefs in symbols, actually, and this is a conceptual art. We have to understand that, because otherwise we cannot understand. And also we have to know more of mythology and ethnography. Archaeologists to this day, they just are interested in material culture and not in the spiritual culture. Even reconstructions of our ancestors, for instance, Upper Paleolithic cave dwellers, are portrayed as barbarians, which is not right. They are not barbarians. I think maybe we are barbarians, but not they. Or when they reached the agricultural stage, they were really sophisticated people.
Yeah, we're wondering if we can survive the next 2 years. We're so wonderful. Well, let's take a look at this wonderful art that our ancestors created.
What we see now, this is a Paleolithic sculpture from around 20,000 years BC from Les Puques in southern France. Note that her head is not important here. She has no facial features. Her legs are also reduced. What is important are her breasts and her buttocks. Also, it's interesting that her breasts are in the middle of the body. This means that this is the focus. This is what is of importance. Her life-giving parts of the body, because in the Paleolithic and later it was believed that the body of the goddess is creating life, and breasts therefore are very important, buttocks are very important, vulva is very important, the legs are not so much. And this will continue for 20,000 years. The same style, the same symbolic presentation. Now we move into the much later period, which is 6000 BC. This is a Neolithic sculpture of a bird goddess. I say bird goddess because she has a pronounced nose, which is like a beak, and she has a hairdo. Her neck is cylindrical, probably of a water bird, and her breasts are pronounced. This is very important. And later on, we continue to find the same kind of images, sometimes very clearly bird-shaped. Her buttocks are pronounced and looks like a bird from the profile. And then she has her signs. If you can notice under her neck, there is a chevron. The chevron is her emblem. And this is another image, which is a vessel, which again tells us that this goddess is connected with the water, because life comes from water.
So the creative principle, I mean, the life-giving principle is the water, the moisture.
Water, and therefore her symbols, especially of this kind of the goddess, bird goddess, are the chevrons, are meanders, and this, for instance, is a temple model. She is the temple. The goddess is the temple herself. Her body is the temple, and decorated with meanders. Meanders, of course, again stress the importance of the aquatic source, of the life source as water. This image has an entrance and also as a hole. Now the other image of this life giver is the snake goddess. Snake goddess and a snake are extremely important in symbolism, and
Very
this
old
is
symbolism,
life
yeah.
energy. You can see that her legs and arms are like snakes, and this is 6000 BC, and the next image will be much later, from the 16th century BC, and we shall see that she becomes an anthropomorphic image. And beautiful, and she is a beauty, although she is essentially a snake, and she is associated with snakes, and you can see snakes crawling up her arms and then on top of her head. And
This is not a little bride of Venus here, is it?
She is not a Venus at all, although she is beautiful here.
She
and
is
the
beautiful.
two, the bird and snake, are usually beautiful, and they were worshipped in the house shrines. Now, the other part of the body of the goddess is the vulva, always shown surrounded by meanders or other water symbols like zigzags or M's or others. Now, this is from the 6th millennium BC, and the other images which I shall show will be later. And also, I must say that the pronounced exposed vulva appears in the Upper Paleolithic period. For instance, this is from Cyprus and dates from around 3000 BC. The vulva is elevated here up to the breast, and the breasts are fused with vulva, which shows that here is the importance, what is this message here. She is probably the birth giver, and she is presented in a stooping position, so maybe this is a birth giving. Now we come to the problem of the birth giving in the Paleolithic period, and in the Upper Paleolithic, as early as about 21,000 BC, as these figurines from southern France indicate. This is from Toursac and Suroy in France, and one of them is dated by radiocarbon date to 21,000 BC. And this is very probably a birth-giving posture which repeats in the Neolithic. This is a Neolithic sculpture. My own discovery dates from 6,300. She is definitely in a birth-giving posture. She has 3 lines on the back, maybe because she is also a triple goddess, and this is perhaps the origin of the belief in 3 fates, birth-giving fates, which appear in folklore at the birth of a child. Then next image is a guardian of young life. She is a Madonna here, holding a baby. But it's interesting that in all the Neolithic art, the Madonnas appear holding babies which, are wearing birds or bears or other animal masks. And she is herself usually a bear or bird or snake. This means that the young life appears in all forms. This one has a bird's mask, and the baby is also a little bird. So this is celebration of life. What we have seen now, it's clear that celebration of life was the dominant feature of this ideology. However, there is also death. Death is combined with regeneration. There are many images which symbolize death. And in this series, the bird, the life giver, which is a water bird, now appears as a bird of prey.
So it's the other face of the goddess.
The other face. Also, if the benevolent snake was representing life energy and also a good energy, now the death aspect is represented by a poisonous snake.
All right, let's look at these pieces of art.
We shall see now a series of images which are either birds or animals which represent death. Now this is, for instance, a shrine from Çatalhöyük in central Anatolia, where you can see 7 vultures swooping down on human beings, and they're headless. And some of these vultures also in other shrines have definitely human legs, which shows that they are hybrids of vultures and the goddess, anthropomorphic goddess. The beginning of this belief probably is the excarnation and the burial as an excarnation. The birds had to take the body, but the skull was usually preserved, and the skull was the seat of the soul. Now, in central part of Europe, we don't have vultures, but we have owls, which we shall see later. But in the Mediterranean area, in Spain, in southern Europe, in Anatolia, which is Turkey, we have the vulture goddess. Now, this is a very good owl in a hypogeum underground tomb near Paris. She has breasts, she has an owl's face, but the whole image is anthropomorphic. Yes. And there are other owls which appear as stelae of stone, and they also appear as urns. It's very interesting to say that the owl image cannot be separated from symbols of regeneration. Some of the owl images are marked with meanders, with labyrinths even. In Ireland, for instance, in famous megalithic tombs, there appear owl images with labyrinthine designs and also some other designs. Now, this is a very interesting find from northeastern Hungary, where the whole family was buried in owl-shaped urns.
So, and it's all over Europe. That's what's so fascinating.
Well,
it's
yes,
in
all Europe there are owl images from the west to the east, and also in Turkey. It's a prevailing image, and this is a death sign. You can see very well the vulva and an umbilical cord, and which means that the image of death is combined with the symbols of regeneration.
Oh.
And that is continuous through time for millennia. So this is from Troy, from 3000 BC, and what we have seen other owls, especially in Western Europe and France and Brittany, also they date from that period.
But this is such a beautiful piece of art, and I just want to throw that in too, is we really have been seeing some incredible
well,
creations.
it is interesting to note that such images like this were cherished by art historians. So what we see here is a stiff posture. Mm-hmm. This is as stiff as bone. Maybe not from this one, because this is early 6000 BC from Sparta in Peloponnese, Greece. But next images will show the stiffness and slimness. Now, why? Because the symbol of death is also bone. Therefore, all such sculptures which produce figures with folded arms and legs are always together are made of marble, of bone. This is, for instance, of bone, and of light-colored material. So, because death in early times was of white color, of bone color. It's not of black, as in Indo-European or Christian religion. So this has also a very large pubic triangle, which means that this image is also associated with the belief in regeneration. Mm. Now, a beautiful one is from Sardinia, from still probably this is the beginning of the 4th millennium. The figurine is of marble, and you can see the abstract art in its excellence.
Yes, it's
the folded
beautiful.
arms are made, you know, and with the shoulders are in one, and then the lower part of the body is reduced, and the head is also anonymous. This is not important. And then the most maybe charming images of the same series are from Cyclades. They are from the middle of the 3rd millennium and are very well known in books. But this is definitely a death aspect. Some of these images have features of a bird of prey, of an owl, or of another bird of prey, or even of a snake. So they are not so innocent.
Yes.
And maybe even the Gorgon heads developed from these masks which these goddesses wear.
I think one of the things so intriguing about your work is the perspective that you're bringing to it now, because in some art books you'll see the Cycladic art that we just saw, and they'll say, oh, look at the girlish slim figure, really missing
well,
that
this
depth
means that
aspect.
we look through our own glasses, and this is what we see, and therefore, you know, some other aspects are even not mentioned in books and they're forgotten. But this image of the slim lady, yes, but the fat lady is not so important, or she is called just fertility symbol.
All right, now always again with the goddess, it's the regeneration. We've seen these death aspects. I mean, and so now I'd like to go on to see what her as the great regenerator, how she is truly the giver of all life, and all she takes life, she gives it too. So let's take a look at our
yes,
next series.
well, we shall see now very mysterious features, and this is, well, she's lying unfortunately on the side, but she was originally standing. This is a fish, a fish goddess, which has fish mouth, and she has eyes, and then her body is ornamented with a labyrinthine design. This is from Lepenski Vir in northern Yugoslavia, and the date is before or after 6000 BC. So now in the series of regeneration we have such interesting representations like fish, toad or frog, hedgehog, and then a bull's head or bull's skull, bucranium. Why bucranium? Because bucranium is similar to female uterus, and the female uterus was of the shape of a woman's uterus. The fish sometimes is shown as uterus. Now this one is also from Lepenski Vir, and we have the water streams going down the body. The eyes are fish eyes. Now the next image of regeneration is the frog. You see here a shrine from Çatalhöyük, and the images of frog-shaped goddesses are portrayed on the walls next to live columns and next to bull heads. Such frogs are also carved of stone. This is from my own excavation in Achillion, 6300 BC, of black jet, and also they are made of green stone and other materials, even clay, and they probably were worn as important symbols. If you can see well here, this is a bull head, and on the head is a goddess in an hourglass shape with a small head, which probably is a bee head, and her arms is like bee antenna. She is a regeneratrix. She comes out from the head of a bull, and because the bull head is connected with the uterus.
So again, we see these different animals are seen as epiphanies or representations of the goddess, and again, this connection to all of nature.
Always epiphanies, always epiphanies. She is not an anthropomorphic being always. She is a frog, she is a hedgehog, because hedgehog maybe was similar to animal uterus. She is a lizard, she is a hare, and this is a series of her shapes in the regeneration aspect.
So there's no place that she isn't, really. She's
No,
everywhere.
she is really encompassing all nature, and she has the form which is connected with her regenerative organs, with her own body. And the beliefs exist that, the frog, for instance, or toad is moving in the body, and it's still, even in folklore, known that this is the goddess who helps, who regenerates life. Even in churches, frogs or hedgehogs are found to the 19th century as symbols for regeneration or for fertility too.
Well, let's look at the goddess in this last aspect of fertility. Let's look at the pieces of art we have that show her in some of her more familiar aspects of fertility.
Yes, finally we come to the fertility, and she is the pregnant goddess in here. I can begin with the Upper Paleolithic image from Locelle in southern France, and this is around 20,000 years again, and she is a pregnant lady holding her hand on the belly, and this posture continues for about 15,000 years at least. This means that we have a stereotype which continues. Now, why in Upper Paleolithic she was important? Perhaps her importance was not applied to plant life as later in the Neolithic, when it was very important to have plants, corn growing and so on. But maybe even then she was associated with the regeneration of plants, and she is connected with the renewal of life. And maybe her image as a fat, pregnant lady influenced all nature around her, animal life and human life and plant life. So other images what we shall see will be from much later times. This is from the Neolithic, from around 6000 BC, again from Achillean, my own excavations in northern Greece. She again holds her hand on the belly. And then some other images are found seated in a shrine. This is a model of a shrine. In front of her is a hole, maybe for libations. Now is another figure as a ripe pear seated on a stool marked with diamonds, and this is her symbols. Now we have a pig, and the pig or sow is the sacred animal of this goddess, as it was also in ancient Greece. This image is from 5000 BC, and then we have the continuation. And this is a grave, a megalithic tomb, which is the place of return. Dead body returns to Mother Earth.
I think one of the things that's so interesting to me in this reemergence of the goddess, of what we're seeing now and all this interest of her, is the values that we can carry over from our ancestors, and really a sense of the love of the earth and the connectedness of nature that we really need to continue to survive.
Oh, of course, and we have to go back to nature, and we have to understand in what we believe.
Well, thank you so much, Marija. Good night.
Welcome.